So let's take a closer look at this idea of the virtual studio. The most important aspect really, I suppose, besides the audio workstation elements in there is the idea of a plugin. Now plugins are really self-contained elements of software which can either process audio, so you send audio in and audio comes out and it's processed within the plugin for creating audio effects, reverbs, delays, distortion, modulation, all kinds of things like that. Or you send it MIDI information and you get some audio output the other side. So that'll be your virtual instruments. Really, when we're talking about something like that, we might be looking at drum machines, synthesizers, subtractive synths, additive synths, all kinds of other things, samplers, rumplers. Now there'll be things that are actually built into Cubase or the audio workstation you're actually using. Then there are third-party elements, pieces of software that you can actually buy to bolster your armory with sounds, different types of functionality, different types of synth engines, different types of effects. And there are many different types out there. What we're going to be doing now is it's just showing a very simple way of actually adding a virtual instrument into Cubase and applying some effects to really get you up and running. So we now have a nice blank page in Cubase and we're going to add an instrument. So let's start by adding a track, and in this case we're going to add an instrument track. And we can then choose what type of instrument we want. So let's start with something rhythmic. If we load Groove Agent SE and click on Add Track, and we can then choose a different type of kit. We can use these various filters for deciding on what we want. So in this case, obviously drum and percussion, drum set, electronica. So we can choose an electro pop kit, very reverberant there, electro kit. Great, so we'll stick with that one for the time being. And what I can now do is I've got my loop set up here, 4 bars. I'm going to engage the metronome, the little click track, so I can hear the tempo. And what I can then do is record. And you can see the notes appear here. In this case we're using the key editor, not the drum editor. They're a bit out of time, so I can click on quantize and actually set those to actually quantize how I want them. There we go. That one's a bit out of time, let's move it over. Let's disengage the click and start the loop from here. And we can use the mouse tools to chop the region as well. So a very basic beat going on there. In the mixer window we have Groove Agent SE. And I can insert an effect. So we can look through all these different types of effects we want to apply. We can also search on them. Let's choose a ping pong delay. Set the delay time. That sounds pretty terrible, but it shows we can actually apply these different types of effects. We could try something a little bit more appropriate here. Here we have distortion, which we can apply to the beat. Which really dramatically changes the sound of the drum beats we've got going there. So we can add another part to our rhythm we've got going there. A rather distorted beat. Add a track, choose add instrument, and we can choose something else this time. So for example, we could choose something from Halion Sonic SE. Now this is a sample / synth based virtual instrument. Choose a bass, dance bass. And we can play along. We can record that. Again, the timing's out, so we can use quantize. mixer, we can balance the sounds and make sure we're not overloading the stereo output. Now we've taken the distortion off the drums, but we can drag the distortion we've set up on the drums and use it on the bass. Now let's engage it. That sounds pretty good. So now we can look at a number of different effects. What we might do is actually choose to use effects or apply to a number of different tracks simultaneously. So something like reverb and sometimes delay, you might want to feed from a number of different tracks. You add varying amounts of ambience, but with a similar kind of setting. So in this case, we'll set up a send effect. We right mouse click and choose Add Effects Channel to selected channels. And we can then go in and choose the appropriate plugin. In this case, we use Roomworks SE. You can see here what it's done. It's actually created an effects send. It's actually sending some of the audio from each of these tracks. That will then be routed to this track here and run through the reverb. I've set them now down to, so there's no level from either one going to the reverb. And let's slowly bring that up and you'll be able to see what's going on. So you can hear more of the reverb coming through. Something to be careful of is make sure that the mix is fully up on your reverb when you're using it in a send configuration like this. We can push up the reverb time. We can edit that. We can turn it off. We can also route some of the sound from the drums and also from the bass at the same time if we want to. All this is really doing is it's routing some of the audio from the drum track or some of the audio from the bass track and sending it to a reverb simultaneously, so in parallel. And that's the big difference between that and effects inserts, which actually happen on each individual track separately.